viewers. Susan here at Butler Family Farm, and I'm doing a video based, I guess, on a conversation that took place on YouTube, I think maybe last week, and I'm not sure of all the participants, but Jerry came to me the next morning. He says, I was on this live last night. They were talking about quilts, and I was talking about you, and they wanted to know what your quilts look like. And I thought, well, crap. I don't have a whole lot of quilts. I have a lot of tops that still need that sandwich job done and quilted and the binding put on. But, and I hesitated with him, and then I thought, you know, I have pictures, but I'm not sure where all my pictures are at the moment from different cameras I've used when have finished a top, because to me that's the, you know, ultimate goal for me is just get the top done. But then I thought this YouTube channel is a history for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So I thought it was his idea was a good idea, and so I've spent the last 2 or 3 hours putting my story together, sort of, getting out my stuff to show you, and here we go. The preface to all of this is about 30 years ago, my mother retired, and I was on a medical leave. We were in San Diego, and she came to me. I think we lived like within 10 miles of each other. Anyway, she came up to see me because I was on this medical leave, and she said, you know, I don't have a lot of things to do, you know, I can't garden all the time, and you can't go to the, you know, the opera and be an usher, you know, all the time. She said, I'm thinking about going down to this quilt store I found and learn how to quilt. And I looked at her and I said, well, Mom, that's a great idea. I think I'll join you. So we did, and we took our beginning classes at a store called Rosie's that is still there. I believe it's El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego. And if you're not prepared with a list of what you want, it is overwhelming to go into that store. So I always went prepared when I would shop there. But the outcome of it is that my Nevada sister did some quilts when she was younger for her daughter Kim. Hadn't done that much, and she and my mom were hooked up to go to a retreat July, and I don't know the year, but I know it was July, and they decided not to do it and cancel it, and I was disappointed I couldn't go, but the retreats were kind of pricey out that way, so I just wasn't in our budget at that time. But my mom and Nevada sister decided not to go because my grandfather was kind of like in and out, and my mom was kind of worried, so they canceled. And it's kind of a good thing they did, because I believe that was the weekend that he passed away. So I started looking on the internet, and back then about.com was a huge thing. And anyway, I found this retreat up in Oregon that I thought would be fun, and I told them about it, and it was with a well-known quilter, Debbie Caffrey, and so we did this jaunt, went up there, had our minds blown, and the three of us, we were hooked. We went to a retreat every year together till I moved to Missouri in 2006, and Kathleen moved. She moved from a little small town in California down to Fresno, and my mom and my younger sister moved up to there. And lo and behold, we still do quilts together at least once a year. So here's parts of my journey. We converted my California sister to doing quilts. She was really into doing craft shows and making stuff like that, but we converted her over to quilts, and we were able to do that by hooking up with a lovely lady, Linda Ballard, who took Karen under her wing because Karen is deaf, and we thought it would take away from one of us to help her do all this stuff. And Linda says, that's my job. I'm the teacher. I will do it. And we have stuck with her since then. She does the quilts for my Nevada sister in August that I go back for. In fact, Kathleen's got two quilts now, two quilt retreats now. She does one in March and one in August. And I usually go to the one in August because there's not much going on around here on the farm. So let me take you to my layout and you can see what I've done, and hope you enjoy this. So this is my first quilt. It was done in 2001. It's called Diamond Lake because that was the retreat that we went to. I've got it folded in half because this quilt has been used, which is technically what you want, but it a little bit too used. Anyway, this was the first one, and I did this back in September of 2001. Now, the men in my family, which is living with me, is Jerry and Robert, have this big joke about me and my quilts, that I have a lot of starts and unfinished projects or UFOs, and not a lot of finished ones. So you've seen one. This is a finished quilt, and I made this for Jerry. It's called Casablanca, and the first one I showed you and this one are Linda Ballard quilts that I did at one of her retreats. And this one's Casablanca, and the backing is flannel. And I made this for Jerry. It's got deers on it, and I believe, if I remember correctly, my mother found this flannel for me in a California store. This is a third finished quilt. Again, another Linda Ballard. I made it in 2011. My mother and my younger sister Karen actually picked out the fabric, and this is a quilt I made for my granddaughter Avery to use when she came and spend the night. She's getting older now, so it's not, a big woohoo to come spend the night at Grandma's house, but I do have her quilt here. This is not a quilt as for bedding. It's was going to be a table topper for a daughter-in-law who is no longer a daughter-in-law, so I need to figure out what I'm going to do. But I made this back in 2018, and Jerry and I Jerry helped me pick out the fabric for this quilt project when we were in Branson at their big famous quilt store over there. This one's what they call, I forgot what it's called. It's called a Kansas Trouble. Now this quilt I did not make, but I was with my mom and three sisters. We made a trip to Sisters, Oregon. Looking for my notes. Back in 2005, which was a year before we moved to Missouri, but we had already bought our property, and I knew that there was a barn up there, so I saw this in the Sisters show and became enamored with it because it's called Barns, and I bought it. And I have protected it very carefully because it was a pretty penny, but you can see the quilting. And there's no year on here. The maker did not date it, so I can't tell you. I would say the show was 2005. I would say maybe she made it between around 2003, 2004 to have it ready to be in the Sisters show, which is quilts hanging all throughout the town. This is a quilt top on the kind of like the small size. It's probably, I'd say like a baby size or a lap quilt. And it's from fabric that a friend, or actually my Nevada sister's best friend, put in the auction, and I bought it. There's another piece that goes with it, but I didn't use it in this particular pattern. And this was a quilt that the guild, my local guild, did during the pandemic time. We normally have a little retreat in April and October, and this is from the April retreat, and I don't remember what the pattern was called, and I made it on the small size. But I got the fabric from my sister's friend Barbara, and I need to get it backed and quilted. I have other quilt tops in progress from the Fresno retreats. I have an auntie's, can't remember the name of it. It's finished and it's a gorgeous orange tropical. It's a happy quilt, and I can't find it at the moment. And then I have the 2021 August quilt in progress, which is called Earth, Wind, and Fire, which was a Linda Ballard pattern. And I also have last year's August quilt top, which is called Fractured Crystals. And those two patterns are ones that Kathleen and I saw many years ago in the early days of Linda Ballard, and always wanted to make them. And so when Kathleen was asked by Linda, what would you like to make, she told her those, and so that's what the quote-unquote mystery was. I knew what it was because she just shared with me, but anyway, it's still fun. But those are in progress. My story continues when we moved out here in 2006, and I knew there was a couple of local guilds, and I had been a member of a guild back in San Diego, a big guild. So I was looking for that camaraderie out here, and I found one that was had meetings at night, and that worked for me because I had an off-property job at that time. So I've tried to figure it out, but I think it was about 2013 or 14. I joined and went to their first meeting. I think it was like in the summer, because I remember it was still sunny about 6 o'clock when they started. And they had been having an all-day sew, but I remember that they were doing block of the months, and this time they were doing the Eleanor Burns Underground Railroad series. So I'm not sure. I've tried to find out when that was, but I think it was like 2013 or 14. And then it came along where we would do projects, programs, and I've got several quilt tops I'm going to show you in there that were not block of the months per se, but we would do technique blocks, like half square triangle blocks, and they were in different patterns and whatever. And I have two quilts put together, tops put together that involve that. And then there's several other ideas that we've had over the years that I'll share with you. But my guild experience has been long, because I've been president since April 2016, and they've wiggled the bylaws twice now to keep me on, but I've been very emphatic. I tell them every month now that I'm starting my last year this April. I am not going to go anymore after next March. Not that it's been a huge take of my time and whatever, but somebody else can come in. Somebody else needs to come in and run the meetings, and get a little experience of that, being up front and coming up with ideas and working with the board and all that good stuff. So I've done 4 2-year terms, Every Thursday, once a month, excuse me, not every Thursday, the third Thursday of the month is guild night and pizza night at my house because I don't always have time to get dinner together. So let's go take a look at some of my tops from guild stuff. This actually, excuse me, isn't a guild quilt top. It was a block of the month. Well, no. It was what we called a pizza box, and I bought the material with the directions given out for this year-long adventure, and then the box would travel amongst those who were participating. And I can't even tell you which block was mine, but I do know this is an applique block that I love, and I think my friend Suzanne Becker did that from Guild. She was in this, but it's 12 blocks, and then I had to put it together with the blocks, and this is another applique block, which I think is gorgeous. And you were able to pick out whatever block that you wanted to do, and I've actually kept the list of names that participated in this, and I'll include it somehow with my label on the back, but this actually took place back in 2019. This is another one of a pizza block, but this is what members of the guild did, and the same principle is that I bought the material, which was this this flower, all this in here. I bought this. I added the blue sashing, and I picked out this setting from some research on the internet, because I lean away from traditional settings. I don't want to have like 1, 2, 3 blocks, you know, in a row and then 4 rows of that. I tend to stay away from that. And so this came and caught my eye, and the blue is a little bit maybe brighter than I needed, but because the flowers have blue in it, and that's kind of what I was trying to pull out. But it turned out okay, and I do like the setting, and I would do it again with something else. I talked the guild into doing a UFO list where we write down different 12 different projects that need to be finished, and they could write down what needed to be done and go from there. So this was a block of the month in the early days of when I was a member, maybe 2016, or I'm not sure when. I don't know where my notes are for this particular quilt top, but I didn't want to, they're all the same pattern. They're all stars. Excuse me. It was a star year, and so they're all different stars that we made, and then it looked very fallish to me, so I wanted to frame them up in this brown to kind of break up and kind of make a flow. And then I bought this leafy stuff to make the corners. Now this is on point, so it's not like 12 squares. There are 12 squares here, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 14 squares actually. I don't know why there's 14. Anyway, but I didn't want to do it in the traditional 3 across and 4 down, or, you know, that type of thing. So I put them on point. And so then this took a little extra math in this part, because it's not something that I do all the time, but I thought it turned out pretty good, and it's probably a good lap couch type quilt when I get it finished. This quilt, the guild had a program on color. We're always talking about color and values, saturations, and it came up that we were to go on the internet, and there's these sites that have pictures, and then they show you like paint colors that you could pull to get that same kind of look. Well, I asked Robert, who needed a new quilt, that this would be for him, and that he'd pick out the colors. And I don't remember where we got the pattern from, but these are his colors to a point, and he chose them in very monochrome. It's actually a line that I like. It's from Moda, and it's their grunge line, and it just, you can see here like how it's kind of faded. It's just really kind of cool. And my intent, because this is so long, because for him to cover him from his nose down to his toes, it had to be 6 foot, and then the wide. So these were pretty big blocks. My intent is to make the backing like a buffalo plaid. I think that'd be pretty cool. I don't think I'll do flannel, just do buffalo plaid, but I don't remember exactly when the Guild did this, but yeah, this one needs to get finished up for sure. I have to pause every once in a while to take the top off so you can see the next one, and then look at the next one and see what I remember about this. This was a block of the month program through the local quilt store in Granby, and I wanted to break it up somewhat and not have but I didn't want to sash everything, so I found this quilt pattern quilt layout on Pinterest, I believe it was, and used it as my guidance, and then I put this funky border around it, whatever. It's not really my colors, but it was what she was picked by the shop, and you'd go in, I think it was like on Saturday, and pick up your block and then make it and bring it back the next month, to get the next block. So this one may go into the charity. I'm not sure. It's not a high priority to get done, but it will get done. It'll get finished up. This quilt, for me, was the most trying in a sense. The original pattern called for 1.5 inch strips of whatever, and I chose batiks, and then 1.5 strips of the background. Well, we didn't have those available, and I had batiks in a jelly roll, 2.5. So Jerry and I calculated out the math on how to make this quilt, and then it kind of kept lining up where the same thing showed up, the same colors and whatever. So I tried to get it mixed up, and then I decided that I was just going to leave this side like this, but I put a top and bottom border on, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to do with binding yet, but this took me quite a few years to complete. I kept taking it with me to California because sometimes I didn't do the mystery quilt in August. I just bring my own work. But this original idea and plan dates back to another former daughter-in-law in about 2009, I think, is when I started it. And at one of our guild's April retreats that she went with me, but that's my marker is that time period. This is a 9/10 finished top. I've already got it the backing, and I've already had it quilted. I'm pretty proud of this one. It was a pretty simple pattern. It was a class up at the local quilt store in Granby. This particular strip right here is all machine applique, which is not my forte, but I don't mind machine applique. I'm not a hand appliquer, But this is a pretty easy quilt to do, and I made it for a friend of mine that I worked with, who I still work for in a different capacity. But my my goal, it's on my UFO list for this year for the Guild, but I'd like to get, hopefully I might trade it off with another one, because her birthday's in August, and I really would like to get it to her by then, because it's been several years that it's taken me to get it pieced together. And the lady that was the designer of it, she was in our Guild, and she'd help me, remind me of different things about it. And so then I got the applique part done. Then I had to find the backing, and then get it to the quilter, and things just life just got in the way. But it is a finished top, not one of the retreats, but anyway, so I can add that to my complete list. Oh dear, this one, I don't know what I'll do with this one, because it is not an emotional one, but my mom turned 90 in 2020, and we were going to have a big party for her, and I was going to go back for the March retreat that year. I was going to flip-flop the retreats, because I only go once a year, and I usually go, like I said before, in August, but I was going to go in March, and then we canceled it. So we all got the books from Linda. It's a Linda Ballard, and it's a jelly roll, and so that's why it looks all all squares up. And I had fun doing it. I hadn't really ever worked with jelly rolls again, and I can see now as I look at it, I didn't pay too much attention to my layouts. I should have, and I take that back. I think I did, because I lay everything out on this bed in here, keep the dogs and the cats out of here, and try to get the best that I can. And I do have Robert come in. He's very visual and color, and help me with that. And Jerry helps in the symmetrics of it, squares, triangles, that kind of stuff. So I do get a lot of advice from them, which I solicit. It's not given unasked for. I do ask for it. So, but this was the Linda Ballard. This was the retreat one for 2020. This was the last one I have to show you, and it's kind of an odd one, because I had to stop and look at it because of the way I made it. But anyway, this was a deal we had at the Guild, where we would choose a block or a color or a theme, and then they all would go up on this wall in the community building, and then we would draw names to go up and pick. And I won this particular year, and this year it was 2016, I think. Yeah, it was a 2016 spring, so this has been around for a while. But anyway, the idea of it is they are to look like Polaroid pictures, back if you can remember that or know of that. And so, and then I wanted to be wonky, which means that it it's not straight on. It's it's not a square in a square. So I thought it would be good for one of my grandsons, but it's taken so long that he's older now and probably wouldn't get it, or so I might give it to the youngest grandson, who would maybe like it, except I don't have any tractors in it. I have a chicken, and I don't have any dinosaurs, so we'll see. But anyway, this goes back to 2016, and I like it. I like how it came out, and it's my design, and I think it worked out pretty good. This particular project was a table runner package that the local quilt store gave away during a shop hop, and I had it on, I think it was last year's UFO list, and I got it finished.
And then in watching a YouTube channel that I enjoy, Yoder, she has a series on hand quilting. And she said she's not a big hand quilter in the traditional sense, but she liked to do the big stitch. And I thought, oh, I would like to do that. So I'm going to hand quilt this myself. It'll be on another UFO, I'm sure, but I've got it all ready. I've got the sandwich made. This is the top. And then I've got my batting. And then I pieced together my back. So it's got pieces from the front and some fabric I bought. And I pieced it together to make my back. And so this, I'm going to do what they call the big stitch. And there's other channels besides Corey's, I'm sure, and there are other tutorials on big stitch, but I'm going to use hers because I like her fabric lines, I like her presentation, and I'm going to do the Coriander version. Okay, this is the last one that I want to show, and it's a special one. When Jerry's dad passed away a year and a half ago, in September, his youngest sister lives up in Washington and down the street and around the corner from her dad. Anyway, she packed up a box of things. Some were what Jerry requested and some weren't. And one of them was this surprise quilt top. Before I wanted to talk about it, I wanted to be sure I had all the information, so I texted her, and she just said that it was a quilt that her mom made, a quilt top, and never finished it, and since I was the quote-unquote quilter in the family, she thought I would enjoy having it, which I do, but it's going to take some specialized work, quilting, I think, on it, because it's very heavy, and it's machine stitched. It's not hand stitched. It is machine stitched. But what do they call it, Jerry? It's like velveteen.
It's crushed velvet.
Yeah, it's all crushed velvet, except for this piece here. There's a few that aren't, but 90% of it is crushed velvet. And it is one heavy puppy. And when we were having our Arctic cold snap a few weeks ago, Robert said he had been cold in his room, and his room faces the north. So he gets all a window he has in his room faces the north, so he gets all that winter blast. So I thought, well, I'll just take this and let him use it, because he's going to use it as a top. He's not going to like snuggle underneath it, with it rubbing up on him. He has another quilt he uses as well. And he said he slept the best in a long time because it was so heavy. It's like a weighted blanket, which is a new thing in the bedding arena that I didn't know about until my Nevada sister told me about it. But anyway, so one day, I don't know when yet, but one day we will get a back on it. I don't think we need to put any kind of batting in it. It will only be a 2-layer sandwich, which is what they call the top, batting in the back. It'll just be a 2-layer with the top and some backing instead of the normal 3-layer.
During this, sorry about the hairdo, I've been doing this video in and out of getting my jacket on with my hood and checking my animals, my goats actually. In this video, I use some acronyms that maybe you may not be aware of. For a quilter, a UFO is an unfinished object. Actually, it should be UFP, unfinished project. Or a WIP, which is a work in progress. Yeah. So I use that in when I'm talking about my quilts. and I should have explained this earlier, but it's not an unidentified object. It's just an unfinished project. So if you have any questions about what you've seen, or or what you haven't seen, shoot me a comment, and I will definitely answer it. So that's the end of my trunk show, and I hope that those who were interested enjoy it, and those that didn't know about it enjoy it. And I'm glad to have documented as much of it as I have. I have other tops. I have a couple other tops, maybe 5 or so, maybe 10, I don't know, in different places of storage. I just wanted to get this made on this rainy day here in Missouri to share with you. So I didn't spend a whole bunch of time looking. Like I said earlier, it was a couple hours. But anyway, I hope you all enjoy it, and leave comments, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm open, and thanks for watching. Come back with us on our next journey.